So as Tom mentioned, I grew up on a dairy farm in Wisconsin, have dairying in my background. And I was visiting with my dad the other day, and he mentioned that the milk price right now is projected to hit about $14 per hundredweight. When he started farming back in the 1990s, he was getting $15 to $16 per hundredweight. And what really struck me is he said they've again started printing the number for the suicide hotline on the bottom of every milk check. And I know in the news, we've heard very similar stories happening here locally, that tragedy that happened just north of Moorhead a number of months ago. So this is something, talking about farm safety, farm stress management, that's very important to me. And since it's important to me and I set the agenda, our next speaker is Angie Johnson, our Farm and Ranch Safety Coordinator, to talk about some stress management in agriculture, some practice that we can put in place, and especially like she talked about last year, with the agronomists and consultants we have in the room, sometimes you are that first person that's talking to these farmers. So with that, Angie, take it over.
I've never met somebody that listens as much as Brady does. If you've ever watched him engage in a conversation with farmers to really get to know and understand the soils, the complexity of your farms. And then, of course, he always has a passion for the work that I do in farm safety and agricultural health and stress management. And so it's always fun to work together with the team that's willing to think outside the box and really think about the farm from a holistic perspective instead of maybe one small research trial, even though I'm not downplaying that. Those are all critical in our systems, but just thinking about we don't have any of this data, any of this work, if we don't have the people behind it. And that includes our producers that are out in the field living and practicing these techniques that we're all working and researching on. And so, as always, our programs are open to all audiences. If you have questions, you're more than welcome to check out our title resources at NDSU. But I'm actually going to maybe lighten the mood a little bit before we talk about, like Brady said, it's a tough subject. And so I'm not a YouTuber myself, but this video I'm going to play you quick was something that was introduced to me in some of my graduate occupational and health safety courses.
All right, go ahead. What do you got? We got a 68-year-old farmer. He was building a fence and started noticing some back pain. Did his wife make him come in? No, he came by himself. He's alone? Yeah, he was worried, so he came right in. Hey, Peggy, wake up. We got a farmer who came in voluntarily. What else did he say? Well, I asked him to rate his pain on a scale from 1 to 10, and he just said, I'm here, ain't I? What? Yeah, that's all he said. I don't know what that means, though. That's because you're using a pain scale for normal people. You got to use the farmer pain scale. Is he going to be okay? Listen to me carefully. Did he finish the fence? No, he had to stop. Dear God. Peggy, get the crash sack ready. It's going down. What's a crash sack? Well, we had a crash cart, but we had to repurpose it as a hospital bed, so we just stuffed everything into a burlap sack. Hey, Doc, Jim Bob's on the phone. He cut his hand. He thinks it's infected. Hey, I don't have time for this. I got a farmer here who quit chores to seek medical care. Well, he's been using Delilah's antibiotics. She had mastitis last year. He just wants a refill. Is Delilah his wife? No, it's his dairy cow. Can you call Leroy with this? I got a situation over here. I tried. He's in the middle of a root canal. Leroy is the dentist? He's the dentist and the pharmacist. Hey, Peggy, can you tell Texaco Mike to go ahead and gas up the fan boat, please? Is Leroy a pharmacist for humans or animals? You think we have 2 pharmacists here? Yeah, go ahead and fax him. It might take him a while to get here. Hey, Doc, Jim Bob called back. He said, never mind. Well, great. What? What's wrong? When a farmer calls asking for help, you got to jump on it right away. If you wait too long, he'll say to hell with it, and you'll never hear from him again. Really? Hey, what did Jim Bob say when he called? He said to hell with it.
Well, I heard some snickering out in the audience, so hopefully that got you to laugh and smile a little bit, because this is a tough subject to talk about. And there's times where I even struggle talking about it because I live it personally. I also farm with my family near Galesburg, North Dakota. And so I know what it's like to be in the trenches and to have these really, really tough days. And so that video was really, yes, like, let's make a little light heart of this. But how many of you know and realize how true that video really is? I mean, you guys all in your life, you know of somebody that they've got to finish that fence, they got to finish harvesting, they got to finish whatever task they're doing first, then probably go take a shower because we don't want to get blood all over the car, the pickup, and then we'll go to the hospital. But we have to be about on death's doorstep in order to actually take that first step. And so we know that that video is just to help really identify we're working with a tough, stoic group of people. And so I want to talk a little bit about the agrarian imperative. And if you've never heard of this, that's okay. But it's something that's been researched and really looked at heavily throughout the years, and looking at the health and wellness of our agricultural farmers and ranchers across the United States and even across countries. And so I have this picture of a farmstead. It's not mine. It's just an example. But how many of you, by a show of hands, either have something similar in your own home, or your family or someone you know has that precious farmstead photo in your home? Okay, thank you. I was like, there should be quite a few hands that go up. I do too. We have a notorious salesman that comes around and, happy anniversary, Mom and Dad. I just bought you this really expensive aerial photo that I probably could have hired a crop consultant with their drone to do cheaper. But nonetheless, that photo is a really, really big deal. And I think many of you understand why. It's that history. It's keeping that farm in the family. I'm the fourth generation on my farm, and I'm sure there's many of you that are in that same boat or are getting ready to transition or know of your farmers that you work for. They're transitioning and trying to figure out that plan to do everything and anything they can to save that farm, to make it better than when they received it, to give it to that next generation to care for. That's a lot. That's a big responsibility. That's a big weight to carry if you sit back and really think about it. And so wrong way. So the agrarian imperative really is this idea that to farmers, the land means everything. I mean, that's why you guys are here today, right? How do we make improvements? Yes, there's a bottom line. We've talked about dollars and cents and making profit. But honestly, it's a deeper connection than that. Ownership of that farm is the triumphant result of the struggles of multiple generations. Kind of I already alluded to today. It's taken time, bloodshed, and tears in order to get to that operation to where you want it to be and make it better for that next generation. Now, when you think about it, this idea of possibly losing that family farm, think about the weight that carries in terms of the shame, the pressure that, you know what, I just let down all my predecessors that worked so hard, that gave everything they had to get me to this point. I'm not sharing this to be depressive. I'm just sharing this to really help everybody in this room, whether you farm or not, or like Brady said, many of you are consultants and colleagues and friends of mine. This is a really big weight. And I don't think we sit back and take enough time to think about it. We're proud of it. We're not, sometimes we're scared to share our stories, but that's because we're just private people. But to really sit back and think about that deeper weight that we end up carrying because of this agrarian imperative, the stoicness, the pride that sometimes gets in our way. And also what that means oftentimes is that we will do everything and anything in our power to keep that land, to keep that farm, whatever that case may be, whatever photo is in that frame, by God, we're going to do what it takes to keep it. And that means we take really, really stupid risks. We sometimes make dumb choices, bad decisions, that not just impact those around us, but really ultimately our own health and well-being. And so this seems like a pretty obvious question right now, right? You know, Brady alluded to, that the price of milk, what his family is experiencing. And honestly, you can open up any news media. Sometimes I can't listen to it anymore because it eats at you. It wears you down. So the answer to this question is, yeah, there is stress in farm country right now because of all these external factors that are out of our control. And that makes it the hardest. Is I can't control the markets. I mean, you could argue, yeah, we could somewhat have an influence on the tariff piece by who, the politicians and who we elect. But let's be real, all of us sitting here, like, we can't fix it today. But I want to also showcase and share that this has been a problem and a challenge well before the things that we're experiencing right now with the stressors that we're experiencing through the tariffs and weather and prices and all this stuff. This has been researched and documented, and it's no secret. If you didn't know this, farmers and ranchers have a 3.5 times higher suicide rate than the general public. That may not surprise you because many of you know that stress that goes into it and all those unpredictable factors that we have zero control over. But I think it's just important to help people understand that we work in a high risk environment, that if we don't treat and check in on ourselves and work towards being a better, well-rounded whole person, we can have some serious long-term side effects that unfortunately include death. And so this probably doesn't surprise you either, but firearms are a cause of just about 90% of the farmer suicides. Again, doesn't shock me, probably doesn't shock you. Every farmer probably has a rifle, something for hunting or whatnot. That's just our culture. So why I share this is because I just want you to be aware we have access of quick, easy, lethal means, unfortunately. Okay. And so it's just really important to understand we are at that high risk factor. And what I'm going to talk about coming up is there's ways that you can watch and maybe see some signs. And I want to help coach you and walk you through some things that, if you see something, say something. And I'll get to that in a little bit. And then just one more fact out of some research out of Iowa that was conducted. Our Midwest region is the second highest proportion of farmer suicides, and West was number one. And so just kind of looking at some data, I wanted to throw out, you guys are a numbers group, right? You're data hungry. I'm data hungry. I want to see facts. I don't want to just fill you with fluff. This stuff has been happening well before the things that we're experiencing now. And especially for some of you, you went through some of this bad stuff in the 1980s. And I want to be mindful and not doom and gloom, because there is always hope. I think what's interesting about that production agriculture is we are one of the most isolated groups, but yet most connected groups. Does that make sense? I mean, I think that it's changed a little bit, right? We're kind of in this dog eat dog world of now we're competing for land from each other. And so I think we've lost maybe some of that neighbor to neighbor helping connection. It's still there, don't get me wrong, but I think we've kind of eroded away at that because of survival. We've got to have acres in order to make crop, in order to have yield, in order to have bushels and make payments. And so I just want to be clear too that what carries farmers on is this simple idea of hope. There's always tomorrow. The sun will come out tomorrow, right? And so we have to have that mindset. Every day I walk outside, I raise livestock. And so with livestock, there's dead stock. And every day is something different you're walking into. And crop production is no different manner. So we just have to really be supportive, be there for each other, and remember that there is a tomorrow. And I want you to, I'm not going to do any role playing. I don't like that, but I want you to sit down and picture yourself as the person in this tractor. And I'm sorry if you don't like John Deere, picture a different color. It doesn't matter to me, but you're out there, it's springtime. Brady recommended this past fall. We didn't really have great, opportunities to put down anhydrous. It was just honestly too warm. So you're out there in the spring, putting down some anhydrous to get ready for that corn crop. But as you're driving along, you start thinking about the day, right? You've got auto steer, so you have time for your mind to wander. And gosh, you start thinking about jeepers. We're 2 weeks behind because the winter never ended. So we had spring flooding, couldn't get into the fields, couldn't get anhydrous on last year. We're already 2 weeks behind. My hired man is sick, and so now we're behind a driver. oh my gosh, my son Tim he's got track practice and a track meet coming up that I got to be at. I don't know how I'm going to pay this operating loan that I had to take out that my banker really wasn't thrilled about. So when you start sitting there and thinking through all of these things and whatever's happening in your life, you put that in that situation, it really starts to add up. It starts to eat at you. And what's your escape? How do you recognize those signs that you're not okay and you're not handling that stress? So again, picture yourself in that tractor, whatever color you want it to be and whatever anhydrous rate you want to apply for that crop. And you're driving along when all of a sudden, every single warning light in the cab of your tractor starts going off. I'm not kidding you. Every single light starts. The tractor's still driving. It hasn't completely shut down yet. The lights are flashing on the dash. That awful buzzing sound, if you've ever left the park brake on, that's for my tractor, that the buzzer just doesn't stop until you get that park brake off. And so you've got all these buzzing sounds going on. You do notice there's no smoke or flames coming from the hood, under the hood of the cab, or the hood yet by the engine. So that's a plus. You're still being able to operate. But what is your response in that situation? What is your response? I would hope it would be that you stop, right? And so when I do field work or whatever for my dad when I was growing up and he was teaching me how to operate a tractor, the temperature gauge was always the number one thing you watched, right? Because if that engine overheats, you immediately shut it off because God forbid, we do not want to damage that engine. Don't care about the driver in the seat of the tractor, but we want to save that engine at all costs. And so your response typically, if this is all happening, is you're going to stop the machine, you're going to shut it down, you're going to climb out, and you're going to assess the situation. But really, you guys know this. These lights, these warning indicators, these warning lights, they mean something. They're telling you something, and they're telling you that something is wrong with that piece of equipment. Okay, so for example, like I just talked about, maybe our engine's overheating. Maybe we've got fuel issues, and a lot of our tractors nowadays are so computerized. Who even knows what could be the computer issue with the machine? All I know is we just got to stop and shut this down and do some assessment. We got to figure out and start reading codes to identify what's going on. And the reality is, those are all warning signs. And for each and every one of us, including me, we all have our own check engine light, our warning light, our indicator gauge, whatever that is, that sometimes we do a poor job recognizing. So for example, what I mean by that is, sure, I have a migraine, right? And yeah, I've got a migraine, but if I don't sit down and think about why does my head hurt that bad? What's causing that stress? I will have that migraine for days, or I will have that stomach issue for days because I don't stop and actually address the problem. And so what I'm trying to get at here, folks, is I need your help to not only identify what your check engine lights are, but for the people that you work for, because they may not be able to recognize them or even realize that these warning signs are happening. And these are just a couple of examples looking at physical, emotional. And then if you're like me, that little exclamation point check engine light, that's on our tractors all the time. I don't know if any of you guys have farmers where that light's on all the time, but just as some humor and understanding, just to realize that, you know what, I'm not feeling right, or I'm a little more cranky than normal, and people around me are noticing that, or maybe I'm standoffish, maybe I haven't talked to Brady in a month and he's like, Angie, what's going on? That's not like you, right? It's those subtle things. It doesn't have to be drastic things, but it's just subtle differences that you start noticing that, you know what, something's just not right with me, or something's not right with my friend, the farmer I work for, whatever your situation is. Being able to recognize that and take some action, that's really the first step. I had to laugh earlier when Lee's talking about, yeah, it's easy to just say eat more vegetables and exercise. that doesn't change my behaviors. I need to be able to have more motivation and recognize when I need to do those habits. It needs to be in my time, in my place, and my choice. And so just really making sure that everybody sits down to think about why is my check engine light on? What's wrong with my neighbor? What's wrong with the farmer I'm working with? Something's just off and not right. And it's really important, this step right here. Don't wait. You might regret if something's off and you don't deal with it or ask the question or talk about it or at least let it out. Does that stress go away? Does that check engine light go away if you don't deal with it? If your engine's overheating, like in my example, do you just keep driving and I hope this goes away? Absolutely not. You stop, you investigate, you check it out. And stress is no different. We got to recognize it. In my work, that's the first step, is we got to recognize when something's not right. And you know what? We're agriculturalists. We fix it. We'll fix it and we'll identify it and we'll work on it. I'm not saying we're going to be perfect. It's not going to be shiny and brand new. That's not the point here. The point is, let's get better. Let's get to a point where I'm feeling good. And even though that doesn't mean the things around us are going to be better, like markets or weather, but let's control the things that I can control, which is my attitude and my response to bad, tough situations. I talked a little bit, this is kind of a cliche, but let's be honest, it works. If you see something, say something. And what I mean by this is, if you recognize, if you're hearing, Brady, I'm just going to keep picking on you because I know we're good friends. And you know what, if Brady's talking to me and I just say, you know what, life really sucks right now and I don't want to be here. His question, which is going to feel awkward and it's going to be really hard to ask, but he needs to ask me, Angie, are you thinking about suicide? Because if he doesn't ask that question, he might live. I'm fine. Okay, I'm fine. But if he doesn't ask that question, I think all of us in this room can figure out what scenarios could play out. I could make that choice, right? And now Brady's got to live with that for the rest of his life, knowing that he didn't ask that question. Or he could ask that question and we have a conversation and he helps me keep going, get the help I need, get the support I need. Asking for help is not a weakness. It is the biggest strength you'll ever see in your lifetime. And so ask the question. Don't be afraid if someone might get offensive. I have yet to kind of, when I go through trainings, when you ask that question, it's like kind of taking some extra air out of that tire. You take some of that pressure off that person that's like, oh my gosh, you really care about me and you're worried about me. And, my response could be, oh, no, I'm not at that point. I'm just really frustrated. Or, yeah, Brady, I'm struggling here. And so the next part, which is also hard, right? And so in his situation, because I've been in this situation before where I've had to ask that question, it's like, holy crap. Okay, they said yes. Now what do I do, right? Like going through the chart here of okay, the flow chart, they say yes, here's your response. And so really making sure that you listen. And whether you're on the receiving end or the opposite, whether you're getting the question or asking the question, be able to listen and don't be surprised right away if you get some resistance. Don't give up, right? And especially if someone is at that point of suicide, we need to refer them to, like Brady gave in a great example, which I'll show, is 988. And what's beautiful about 988 is it's not for people that are just on the brink of life. It's for people like in my example where if Brady's working with me and he asks a question, you can call 988 and he can get that support as to what steps are next, what resources are in North Dakota, where can we get Angie to get that support and help, and does she need emergency assistance right now? So that's what I really appreciate about 988. And that's a myth, typically a myth that people think about 988 is, oh, it's only for people that are, the suicidal people. And that's not true. It helps connect anybody on either side of that aisle, figure out what their resources are and what next steps they can take. Providing enough support, and then just making sure you don't have to carry this weight on by yourself. There's so many great supports. It's getting better. Yes, North Dakota's behind the 8 ball a little bit when it comes to mental health support and resources, but we're getting better because we're starting to get better as the farming community in terms of talking about it and being open and honest. I talked about this a little bit already, but don't be discouraged if that person that you're talking to is just not ready yet. That's normal. They're trying to process and understand and read their own check engine codes, because oftentimes, like I shared with you, it's really tough for people to recognize we don't like talking about feelings. So since we don't like talking about feelings, we sure as hell don't want to identify what we're feeling either. And so just be patient. And the best thing you can do at that point is really just sit down and listen. And we're not perfect. I'm not perfect. There are times when I don't say the right thing. Don't worry about that. Right now, the first step is helping that person recognize that somebody cares about them and that we're going to get you the support that you need to work through this. I just wanted to go through some of the resources. I kind of already talked about 988. I should have put all these in QR codes, but I think, Brady, you're going to be giving the slides. Okay, he's going to be giving the slide decks out, so that way you have access to the links. One of the things that a lot of people don't know about, which again, it's frustrating that sometimes things are the best kept secret, but we do have regional behavioral health clinics scattered across North Dakota. So at any of these sites, you can walk in. No appointment necessary, right? Because like that video shows, we don't make appointments. We just show up when our arm is about ready to fall off, right? And so these are great resources that are really, I know it's not perfect because there's going to be some travel distance, but at least we've got them spread out semi-well across the state so that you can go in as a walk-in and get the help, get the support you need, right? So they'll be able to do an assessment and get you referred to identify, what do you need? Do you need counseling or do you need another form of support? One of the other big things that we talk a lot about as a team for our farm stress team is that we are going to have an issue with credit this year. So with folks getting access to loans, operating, I've heard some really icky things. My big brother is a banker. He's an ag loan lender. He's in Minnesota, so hopefully none of your lenders, but I'm just kidding. But big brothers don't get stressed. And I've never seen him this worried. And he's had to tell people, no, it's just not working. It's not going to work, which I appreciate that honesty instead of here's gobs of cash and then not being able to repay. Then we got a different situation. And so I'm only showing this to you because, believe it or not, we actually have credit counseling through the Department of Ag in North Dakota. Minnesota also, if you're a Minnesota resident, that is available to you as well on the Minnesota side, of course. But this might be something, folks, for those of you that are advising for your producers. I really, really encourage you, if you start seeing some red flags for your producers on the financial side of things, this might be a really good option. It's free. There's an application online you fill out. Contact Madison. She's great to work with, and we can get some credit counseling if in the event that you got to do some mediation work. And then, of course, we work with some agricultural counseling programs that are in North Dakota. And so these are two individuals that our team works with extensively, Becky and Monica at their counseling centers. And so some of you may have heard of them before. They speak all over the state and in Minnesota as well. Reach out to them if you have questions, or myself as well, if you're dealing with somebody that's struggling. And last but not least, just really want to reiterate this idea, and there's research behind it. There's strong correlation. As you can imagine, farm stress leads to farm injuries, right? Because when we're stressed, picture yourself in that tractor when you start thinking about all these things that are pressuring you, and then all of a sudden something plugs. The best example I can think about is a friend of mine. The baler plugged up. He was thinking and focusing on something else, and the baler plugged. And instead of shutting the PTO off to go unplug it, just exited the cab, tried to unplug it. The minute it unplugged, the minute he got that wad of hay pulled out, took his arm right with it. And he's like, I know better. I was taught better. But I was thinking about something else. I was worrying and stressing about something else and missed a really, really big step. So just want to really reiterate the positive opportunities that you have to be able to watch for signs in those that you work for and work with, and really help have that conversation, slow down, take some time, be focused. If you're tired, you need to stop. And I know that's hard. I know that's, there's some really long days and long nights in agriculture, but there is no farm if there's no you. So with that, my key message, take care of yourselves, right? You have to be healthy in order to help someone else. Recognize when your own check engine light is on, or the folks that you're working for. Talk through it, be a listening ear, and refer if you need to. Don't forget to ask the question if you're really seeing those big warning flags. And just remember, you're not alone. There's so many of us at Extension that are here to help guide you to where you need to go, and we can help you through that process. So with that, I have no idea where I'm at on time, but if there's any question, if there's time for questions, if not, I really appreciate this opportunity. I hope this was helpful.